My name is Jessie Ace. I'm part of a group of enabled warriors that you've probably never heard of. We're fighting back against our invisible illness and taking the dis out of disability. We don't give sympathy to our symptoms. They enable us to be the warrior that we are. If you ask doctors and nurses, they'd say what we're doing is impossible. But pushing the limits of our conditions is something that we have to break through every single day. See, we push the limits. We are mentally strong, and we can do anything. The question is, how far can we push those limits? This podcast will give you the answers. I'm Jessie Ace, and this is the Disabled to Enabled podcast. Enabled Warriors on our show today is a brave mum of three, which she homeschools. She's also training for a marathon. She suffered a huge shock one day when out of nowhere she suddenly had a heart attack. From there, she found out that she actually had a serious heart condition and her life changed in an instant. She's now a life coach and runs her own podcast called Lifes and Valleys Mountaintops, which helps people going through a difficult time. And I am so looking forward to chatting with her today. She's such an amazing lady. Enabled Warriors, please help me in welcoming the fabulous Gina Johnson. Woo! Hey Gina, how you doing today?
Hey, wow, after that fabulous introduction, I am great.
Awesome. Let's go straight in by talking about what that day was like when your heart attack happened. Like, what were you doing? Who were you with? Where were you? That must have been so scary.
It is actually not as exciting as it sounds because I was just with my kids and my now 15-year-old would have been 10. He went missing and nobody could find him. And I was really panicking. And I was like, where is he? And all the kids were looking for him. And I was about to call the police. And that's when it happened. So I just brushed it off as stress or maybe indigestion to the popcorn that we were eating. And then when I found him, I just burst into tears. And I was so upset and angry and everything all at the same time. Oh. And after that, I actually went to sleep for the rest of the night.
So you literally have a meaning now for, you know, when your kids are really driving you mad and you're like, oh, you nearly gave me a heart attack. Like, they actually did. That's insane.
Literally, I was having a heart attack. And if anyone's listening and you're kind of laughing along, it's actually quite normal for women to brush it off because women have symptoms a lot like heartburn. So when you Google it, it could be heartburn or it could be a heart attack. And if you're especially in your 30s, you're like, there's no way it's a heart attack, right? But going to get help right away is so important.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, did you have any like signs or anything beforehand? Were you feeling a bit weird or anything like that? Or just, you know?
Yeah. I think I had symptoms for months and months because I was a bus driver. And every time someone would jump in front of my bus or, you know, a car would hit my bus or something would happen, I would get chest pain. And I went for all kinds of tests. And you guys aren't going to believe this, but I actually canceled my living life insurance 31 days before I had a heart attack because I couldn't afford it anymore. And my life insurance guy is like, you shouldn't do this. You should keep it just in case. And I said, hey, I'm going through a divorce and finances are tight. So I'll keep my life insurance, but I don't need the living life insurance because my doctor called me in and she said, you passed every test. You are so healthy. She's like, there's nothing wrong with your heart. It's just stress from your job. And then 31 days later, I had a heart attack.
That is so typical, isn't it? Oh no, God, how did that feel when you had a heart attack and you suddenly were like, oh, I've got no insurance, oh my God.
Yeah, it was pretty stressful. I think that was more stressful, to be honest with you.
Than the actual heart attack. Oh my gosh. So they told you as well that you had something called angina as well before your heart attack happened? Did you know kind of anything about that? So what is angina and how does it affect you day to day?
Yeah, certainly. There's many different kinds of angina. Mine is called vasospastic angina. So the blood vessels close shut, which cuts off the air and circulation to your heart. Oh, wow. And it's almost undetectable because if everything's working properly, it looks like you're in perfect health. So unless they're doing a heart test at the second you have a vasospasm, they can't see it. And I was
Oh, wow.
lucky because I went to the hospital the next day, and I never quite finished that story. May I share?
Yeah, of course, of course.
I went to work and I grabbed my bus at 5 a.m. And as I pulled onto the road just before merging on the highway, my vision just disappeared and I got a really bad migraine. So I asked the supervisor to take me to the hospital to get migraine medicine and just left my bus parked forever on the side of the road.
Oh, no.
And I told the nurse, I said, last night my son was missing and I had this pain right around my chest, like the bra line, and it was so severe. And she came back about an hour later waving these papers going, you had a massive heart attack,
Oh,
because they measure troponin in your blood, which comes from dying heart tissue. And that is the only way that they can diagnose it, as of now anyhow, is
oh,
if you
wow.
happen to make it in time to get that test.
That's crazy. Oh, gosh. So some people might have it for ages and ages and ages and never know.
Yeah, and sorry, you asked me the symptoms. The symptoms are different for everybody, but a lot of common ones are you just get chest spasms at rest or at nighttime or when it's too cold or when it's too hot or if you're around smoke. And if I have too much stress,
Oh,
then
gosh.
it even affects my eyesight.
Oh,
So
no.
the spasms happen all over. So it can affect your head. And before getting the medication, I had migraines all my life. And once they gave me the medication, my migraines went away. So it was a great thing to find out that I had it at least.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, did you go to the doctors a lot about your persistent migraines? Did they give you any help for that at all, or?
They tried, but every medicine they gave me made me sick. So
Oh,
I went to emergency for IV painkillers when I had them bad enough, because
mm,
they were so bad. I would have rather die than had to get through it. And then I had these 3 kids that I had to take care of. So it was kind of a blessing, as weird as that sounds, when I finally found out what was causing it.
well, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just crazy how it all kind of all happened at once. But like you say, like at least that it did, because then you actually got a proper diagnosis for it, and the migraines have stopped now or have cut down now.
Yeah, the migraines have stopped. It's just,
Oh,
they
good.
call it an aura before the migraine, where your eyesight is affected. Once in a while, I still get the aura, but thankfully, no more migraines.
Oh, thank goodness for that. So do you have to take medication like daily or weekly or? Yeah.
Yes, and I don't recommend this, but if anyone's wondering, do I need medication for angina? I quit taking the medication for 3 weeks just to find out, and I definitely needed it. And when I told my cardiologist, she's like, you can die, you should never do that. And I said, oh, well, I just needed to know because the medication has side effects that I don't like.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Sometimes the side effects are severe, more severe than what's actually going on. It's so difficult, such a difficult balance. Yeah, so for enabled warriors listening, if you've been prescribed medicine, we do recommend that you take it and don't just stop taking it. Just going to say that as a disclaimer. That might be important. So do you find that you do things differently now that you've kind of gone through that experience? Are you, more kind of careful about what you do, or?
I should say I'm more careful, but I'm not really. But I just did the Abbey grind 2 weeks ago, and I didn't know this, but I was having anaphylactic shock from a new fish oil that I tried to take,
Oh no.
and I had to quit halfway up. And
So
I
what was
figured it
that?
out
Sorry.
later. I was started a new fish oil to try to improve my gut health, and I'm really allergic to anchovies. I
Oh
didn't know.
no.
So I was like halfway up the mountain and my face was going blue and I couldn't breathe. So
Oh
I still do stuff whether or not I should, because my motto is kind of, I'd rather die living life than just sit on my couch and live a long life not living at all.
well, yeah, that's very good point. So was that halfway through a race? Did you say that you were doing?
No, it's called the Abbotsford Grind. It's
Oh,
just
okay. What is that?
straight up a mountain, like
Oh.
winding dirt path that goes up. And my daughter is training to be police officer for the fitness test. So I've been going with her on her training hikes, and she put me to shame. She carried her 30-year-old daughter on her shoulders up the mountain. And she's like, come on, mom, come on, mom.
Oh my god.
But one thing I did change though is that I really preload the people in my life what to expect. So if I come with you, there's a chance that we won't finish, or I'll sit here and you can finish and I'll wait. And everyone's really good about that. So at the halfway point, she said, do you want to go or do you want to stay? And I told her I had to go. And I said, you know what, you guys go finish. She's like, no, it's okay. I'll come again another day. And then we went and got ice cream instead.
Well, that sounds a very good compromise. So what is the kind of, how has the diagnosis changed you in terms of personality? I mean, can you describe the person that you were before all this happened and the person that you are now? Do you think that's changed your personality in some way?
I would say only for the good, because before this happened, I worked 5 days a week. I was gone sometimes 12 to 14 hours a day. So my kids hardly ever seen me. And when they did, I was always doing something else. I was on my phone or checking email or just talking to somebody else, or never really present. And now I'm not always perfect at it, but I'm pretty good now at focusing all of my attention wherever I am. And I think that's improved the quality of my relationships.
Yeah, that's really good. And especially, I suppose, now that you homeschool the kids as well, so you've got all that time with them as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. How are you finding homeschooling?
I'm loving it so far. It's only been about 10 months that I've been homeschooling, so I'm still pretty new. But it's really given me the chance to connect with other moms. And there's a lot of moms that have podcasts and blogs and just do really great things.
Oh, that's awesome. So you've got like a little community kind of going on as well, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. So can we chat a little bit about how all of your everything that went on with your illness kind of affected your kids? Like, how did you really tell them about your illness? Did they kind of understand it, or did they not? Did they ask you anything that was really awkward? Kids are good at that, aren't they?
Yeah, they're good at that. It was kind of difficult because my youngest was only 2, so he didn't really understand. And my other kids were 10 and 13. And I was divorced. And for the second time, I was going through my second divorce right when all this happened. And my 2 oldest kids, their dad, for whatever reason, didn't tell them that I had a heart attack. Oh. And I just didn't come to pick them up from school. And my second ex-husband, he brought all the kids to come visit me 3 days later. And he was the one who told them on the way to the hospital. And my kids said, wow, Mom, we just thought you abandoned us and we're never going to come back again.
Oh,
it was just so heartbreaking.
Gosh, I can imagine. How did that make you feel? Like, oh.
Yeah, that was probably the hardest thing I ever had to hear or went through. And it got a lot worse because my first ex-husband, he told the kids that I was pathetic because I couldn't parent them and I couldn't deal with stress. Oh. And he actually bought a house very far away and took both of them away from me.
Oh,
and
that's awful.
Yeah, it was pretty horrible. I didn't speak to my daughter for a whole year or 2 before we were able to work through things. And now everybody's back and everything's good. But it took a lot of being able to work through. And I still remember the day when I finally got this diagnosis and the cardiologist said, you're not crazy. She said, you have angina. And there's lots of women who were diagnosed as crazy before we could figure this out. So I said, well, would you be willing to write a letter to the judge if I go back to court to get my kids back saying I'm not crazy? And she's like, absolutely, you go for it. So things weren't great. So I went back and got my kids back, and it took a lot of time to heal, because the one thing that was really hard for my kids is we went from having, they had me and my now ex-husband income together, which was pretty good. So we had a pretty nice house and they were in hockey and they had a pretty good life. And then it fell to single mom who has no income. And I lived off my pension for a few years because I was determined not to go back to work and to start my own business. And they were the ones that really suffered.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's incredible how all that happened. I mean, so you went through all of that kind of stuff and it was all crazy hard at the time. Like how on earth did you get out of that mindset wise? What kind of made you go, right, okay, that's enough now, I'm not going to feel sad about that anymore, let's move on, let's be happy, let's be positive, let's move forward? What was that change? Where did that come from?
Well, I'd say it started with a decision from the hospital that I was going to get through it and I was going to see my youngest graduate. That was like my vision I had in my head. And I actually started my podcast in the hospital because I couldn't find any story, excuse me, that was inspiring. I couldn't find any story to lift me out of that rut because there's very few 34-year-olds that had heart attacks. And I'm in the cardiac unit for 5 days with a heart monitor strapped to my neck. And everybody else is like 80, 90 people are dying and everyone's crying. And it was just a really strange experience. After I started the podcast, the first 20 or 30 guests I interviewed were all life coaches. And somehow it brought me into life coaching and going to school online, doing my positive psychology certificate and then my life coaching certificate. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know if I would have been able to keep my mindset in a good place.
That's amazing. And I suppose doing it online as well made it easier to kind of do around the kids and things and handle with your illness as well. So that was good.
Yeah, they actually did have one weekend every month where we had to go to school from like 8 to 6 downtown Vancouver for 6 months. And that was fun. I had all kinds of people taking care of my kids. One time my dad drove out and picked them all up, and my dad doesn't really like kids. So that was really humbling to learn how to ask for help. But those ladies that I did that course with became really good lifelong friends. And I think the hardest part is it's so easy to stay isolated when we're in that place of sickness. But that was just what I needed to like get outside of myself.
Yeah. And just having someone outside of the whole situation to offload to and chat through things with, that's huge. That's a huge thing. So what made you really think about starting your own business in particular? Why not just say, oh, I'm just going to go and get a job somewhere working at a candy store or something?
Everything I've learned has been the hard way. So I actually did do that. But instead of a candy store, I picked a funeral home.
Okay.
So
a bit quieter, maybe.
No, because I joined the sales team to help people pre-arrange their funeral. So I would go to someone's home and I would say, okay, let's help get all your things in order. And what do you want to do to get ready for when that time comes? And it was a really fitting job after what I'd gone through, because after that, I had to have a will made. I had to have all my healthcare directives in order and all your funeral arrangements made. The only thing was I got really sick again. And my doctor said, you're going to have to make a choice. Do you want to have a career or do you want to be alive?
Really? Is that what he said? Oh, gosh.
There's a lot of other things I didn't mention, like it was a very toxic company and my boss was screaming at meetings, banging the table saying, why aren't you guys selling enough this month? So I think it was the stress on top of it all, but my body just won't allow me to work 5 days a week. And with working from home, you get to work whatever hours you want. So I can, when the kids go to bed, like sit and work until midnight or get up at 5 a.m. and work till they get awake. Yep. And it's a lot better suited for my health to have my own business.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the great thing about working for yourself, is just like you can do it whenever you want to in the day. And I don't know about you, but and you probably don't do this, it's probably just me, but I like to go for a 2-hour nap in the afternoon. And if I had to work now, I really don't think any employer would be happy that I fell asleep at the computer for 2 hours every afternoon. So, yeah. I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Wait a sec. Don't they get to have a siesta in Italy? I don't know if that's a rumor.
They do in Spain.
Spain, there we go.
In Spain. So maybe I should move. Move to Spain and then, go for a siesta.
I'll come join you.
I don't know Spanish though, so that's maybe a bit of a barrier. Yeah. Okay, so your podcast features lots of people's inspirational journeys and how they overcame those challenges. What made you kind of want to start a podcast and start talking about other people's journeys and things?
It really was for my own selfish reasons of wanting to try to just connect with somebody else other than myself. And no, I wasn't the only one who went through it. And then I couldn't stop because I realized there's people out there who are in that same situation that just need to hear someone else's story.
So your podcast is called Life's Valleys and Mountaintops. can you tell us a little bit more about it, where it's kind of hosted, and what kind of people you've had on there?
Yeah, certainly. It's hosted in Canada, and I think almost everyone around the world has been on the show. For some reason, it's trending the highest in the Philippines right now. And
Nice.
um, I've shared about 80 different stories, and I've had people that have fallen off 40-foot train trestles, to people that have been bucked off horses into a steel wall,
Oh,
to
wow.
another woman who had a reaction to penicillin and her whole body literally disintegrated. And the one common thread they all have, other than the shock factor of like, wow, that hurt, is just that mindset to really, no matter what, to get through it, and the vision to decide what they wanted to create for their life.
So can you tell us a little bit more about Synergy Life Coaching? How long have you been running that? What does that entail?
Sure. After the funeral home job didn't work out so well, I went to an employment agency for help, and they said that they had a program for entrepreneurs to start a business, and you got a business coach for 1 year. There was only a month of actual in-school training. So I put together a team to help with daycare, and I went and did the training on how to run a business and decided just to give it a go. And that's why the podcast was named again, as I changed it to my business name. And then I learned that I actually don't really like coaching business people. And that's tough because that's where the money is. There's huge money if you work with Silicon Valley CEOs and coach them. And that's great. It's just I really feel passionate about helping people that are going through a really difficult time. And after my year was up of that program, I decided to keep coaching and keep my coaching business the same. But I decided that I'm going to turn the podcast into my passion and name it to reflect that, and not worry so much about the monetization of lining everything up for business.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. So you're kind of not running the life coaching thing as much now, and the podcasting is the main thing.
Still running the life coaching, just changing the marketing angle. So instead of marketing towards business professionals, as the business consultant would say, that's what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
Changing the branding and the marketing to market towards people. Like, there is a business connection. Absolutely. Almost everyone I've interviewed is a coach, a writer, an author, like, for some reason. But I'd rather help people that are going through some sort of valley per se, as opposed to someone who's a thriving entrepreneur working in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you'd rather kind of help them get from the valley to the mountaintop, as it were.
Yeah. And then they can figure out how to get down by themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So last question before we go, do you have any advice for other people currently going through a trauma of some kind? Like, what would you say to them?
I would just say to talk to people and to make yourself part of a community. And if you can't find a community, make a community, because isolation is the enemy to any illness, I believe.
That is great advice. That really is. And I love the way that you said, if you can't find a community, make a community. Like, yes, absolutely. Definitely go and do that. And I think that's a really important lesson, because it's like, so many people complain about their circumstances, but actually if they put the effort in to actually change those circumstances and create something new, then their lives would be significantly better.
I take that from some of the greatest inspirational speakers, because do you guys know when the best time is to dig a well? Before you're thirsty.
Very true. Yeah, very true. There was someone that said the best time to start a project was 10 years ago, but the second best time is today.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't remember who said that. But
love it, love it.
Too. Oh, right. Okay, Enabled Warriors, this is the part of the show where we find out a little bit more about the personality of our guests with some super quick secrets. Are you ready for this, Gina?
I am ready.
You are ready. I love that. Okay, what is the most inspiring book that you've ever read?
I would say The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale.
Ooh, what's that about? Sounds good.
It is, you can get it on an audio recording, and it's only about 30 minutes long, but he put together what he thinks is the secret to success and the secret to failure in a nice 30-minute book.
Ooh, that sounds Amazing. I'm going to have to look at that after this podcast. What is the weirdest thing would you say that you've ever done?
Okay, I had to think about this. It's kind of embarrassing, but I gave a newly released from prison pedophile a ride home from work when I was a bus driver at 2:00 in the morning, because he missed the last bus and lived in the same city as me. So I said, hey, I'll give you a ride home when I'm off work. And then the next day I opened up the paper and it said, warning, watch your kids. This newly likely to repeat again pedophile has been released into the city of Delta. And I looked at the picture and went, oh God, that was him.
Oh, no. How did that make you feel?
My self-talk wasn't as good then. And I was like, you idiot. How could you do something like that? I have 3 kids and now the guy knows I'm in his neighborhood and this is so bad.
Oh no. Oh gosh. Have you ever seen him again?
No, thankfully no.
Wow. Okay. So what is your most favorite place that you've ever visited?
Long Beach, California.
Oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. What is the scariest thing that you've ever done?
I'd say standing up in a theater to audition for a TEDx talk while my daughter was going into labor.
Oh my gosh, really? So which was more scary, your daughter going into labor or the TEDx audition?
I'm not sure. I think they both were, because she was such a trooper and came along with me, and she didn't know she was in labor until after my speech. But
gosh, no.
I could just kind of sense that she wasn't doing well. And speaking is kind of scary. That's my big thing I'm working on overcoming right now, is standing up and speaking in front of big audiences. Oh, right on.
How did it go with TED?
It didn't go. I'll have to try again. However, my talk, thank you, was not really in line with their theme. Their theme was like innovative technology of the future. And my talk was about what it's like to almost die and preparing your funeral wishes. When I said, are you prepared? Everybody just kind of like glazed over.
Fair enough. Maybe it just wasn't the right time, but that's okay.
No.
That's okay. Okay, Gina, where can other warriors find out more about you and what you do?
Oh, thanks for asking. I have a Facebook page and Instagram page. I can share the links with you, or my website, synergymindsetcoaching.com.
Awesome. And can you give us the name of your podcast and where to find that as well?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. The podcast is on any platform that you listen, Stitcher, iTunes, and you can just type in Valleys and Mountaintops or Gina Johnson and it will come up.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Gina. I will add all of those links into the show notes. So please, Enabled Warriors, go and click on those. Go and have a look around on social media. Go and follow her. Gina is amazing. We love Gina. So we have learned so much from you today. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you as a guest. And I wish you well with everything you do in the future, my lovely. So remember, Warriors, you can connect with Gina at synergymindsetcoaching.com, and on social media, go and search for her, go and search for a podcast, because it is awesome. And remember, Warriors, stay enabled. Thanks so much, Gina. Bye.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you want to fight back against your invisible illness and help take the dis out of disability, then join the tribe on Facebook, facebook.com/enabled warriors. If you love this podcast, click that subscribe button and never miss another episode. And remember, Warriors, stay enabled.